Good afternoon. I'm David Lenz, and it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our 2025 MSA President, Dr. Peter Hallowell. Peter was born in Boston to his father, Paul, a physicist, and Patricia, a nurse. Soon thereafter, the family moved to the Maryland, D.C. area, where they remained thereafter. His parents instilled the importance of family and education. Peter had early aspirations of becoming a physician, practicing being on call at an early age. Dr. Hollowell is the oldest of 6 children, so it was a very busy and stimulating household growing up. A favorite childhood activity of Peter was competitive swimming, which garnered much attention, especially in his Speedo swimsuit. However, his true passion was basketball, and his childhood dream was to be an NBA player. Following high school, Peter attended Emory University, earning a BS in chemistry. Unfortunately, however, not on a basketball scholarship. He did remain, nonetheless, very active during undergraduate and graduate school in intramural sports. Emory is the place where Tarzan met Jane, or rather, where Peter met his lovely wife, Sarah. As you can see, Dr. Hollowell was very active in fraternity life at Emory University. After graduating in 1990, Peter attended Howard University College of Medicine, returning close to his family. There, he excelled, being an honor student tutor and achieving induction into AOA. It was at Howard Peter developed his passion for surgery. Also, note the robust head of hair Peter sported in medical school. Most importantly, however, it was during med school that Peter and Sarah wed in 1993. Thereafter, Peter's journey took he and Sarah to Cleveland for surgical residency. Dr. Hollowell received exceptional and broad training at the CWRU Integrated Surgical Residency Program under the guidance of Dr. Jerry Shuck. It was here that I first met Pete, as I had the privilege of being his chief resident for 2 years, and first noted his characteristics that serve him and us well to this day. He is a very hard worker, even keeled, intelligent, and dedicated to providing the best patient care. Plus, Pete is just an all around great guy and a friend to many. After matriculating in 2001, Dr. Hollowell stayed at Case as a senior instructor, rising to assistant professor prior to taking the leap to his next and current position in 2009. Director of Bariatric Surgery at UVA, where he has advanced a simply outstanding academic career. Multiple directorships at UVA, most recently appointed Vice Chair of Clinical Operations, countless awards, honors, local, national, and international presentations, 87 publications, 4 book chapters, multiple editorial boards, reviewer for multiple journals. During residency, Sarah and Peter welcomed their daughters Caroline in 1999 and Grace in 2001. This is clearly a family which embraces Christmas. This, I believe, is our president's attempt at melding Clark Griswold and cousin Eddie. And Dr. Hallowell is living proof that one can transform from Axl Rose to the ultimate parent. Peter loves spending time with Sarah and his daughters, Caroline and Grace, enjoying hiking, cycling, and traveling, and anything UVA. Dr. Hollowell joined the MSA in 2006 and is very deserving of presidency, having dutifully served our organization in multiple roles, including membership committee, counselor, audit committee, and the very important positions of program committee member and recorder. Members and guests, I am proud and honored to present our 2025 Midwest Surgical Association President, Dr. Peter Hallowell.
All right, thanks, Dave. That was great. And clearly somebody's been subverting me and the family. As you can see, Dave was my chief resident when I was an intern, and he was awesome. And we got to rotate together on numerous services, but the most memorable was pediatric surgery, where we spent countless hours in the hospital. All right. All right. Thank you for the honor of being the 66th president of the Midwest Surgical Association. You cannot ascend to one of these positions without the support of many people. So I need to thank my family first. Please stand up. As you heard, my wife Sarah and I have been together for nearly 40 years. That amount of time goes by in the blink of an eye. Without your strength and sacrifice, none of this would have been possible. Caroline, our eldest daughter, has chosen to embrace the medical field. She's currently a second-year medical student at Georgetown. And Grace, our youngest daughter, is spreading her wings, working for a major public relations firm in New York City. To my mother, who through compassion and extreme grit, as you will hear, has raised 6 phenomenal children. Well, maybe 5 plus me. Dave got the picture already, us in our younger days being forced into a photo. And recently, all of us at our family beach trip to Stone Harbor, New Jersey. It's nice to see that we all like to get together and catch up at least once a year. My brother Jim is a corporate litigation attorney in New York. Jennifer is a professor of civil engineering at Lehigh University. Michael is an accountant and partner at PwC in New York City. And John is a partner in an investment firm in New York City. I'm not sure why I'm not in New York City. Margaret is a middle school math teacher. And now I need to thank my mentors and colleagues from Case Western. Jerry Shuck, the longtime chair at Case, was the chairman at the time who took me in as a surgical resident. Tom Stellato, my friend and mentor now for decades, who saw something in me and offered me my first academic job as his partner. We climbed the mountain of taking on bariatrics from an open operation to a laparoscopic operation. Dr. Anders helped me hone my skills in minimally invasive surgery and efficient and fast surgery. Dr. Harry Reynolds, who taught me to pay attention to those little details, and Drs. Malangoni, McHenry, and Zollinger, who all contributed to the surgeon I am today. To my colleagues at UVA, my home for the past 17 years, Bruce Surmer, an amazing partner and mentor, Dr. Crone, who hired me, Dr. Rob Sawyer, who is now in the Midwest at Western Michigan for his friendship, support, and guidance through all the years, Dr. Sung, my current chair, and the unfortunately now too soon departed Drs. Hanks and Shank. John was phenomenal at medical center and university politics, and he has been a role model and guide for me in this journey, and Sandy, who I've inherited most of his departmental roles. For those of you who do not know John and Sandy, they were in a plane crash early in their career and suffered significant burns. They were able to rehabilitate and go on to a long career in surgery. To the MSA, where I've met many national leaders in surgery and have always had a great family time at the meeting. To Dr. Senegord, DeBoard, Shoup, and Albrecht, who all at some point have written letters or supported me for promotions or societies. And a special thanks to my team at UVA. They're holding down the fort while I get to enjoy these few days here in Michigan. I hope you all also have had an opportunity to enjoy the resort, the lake, and the fun dinner we had last night with the dueling pianos. So the early years. Dave touched on it a bit, but I'll go into a little bit more detail on how we got here today. Early on, I had skills in mathematics and science and was definitely drawn to helping people. Hollywood definitely helped influence me. Some of my favorite shows were Emergency, MASH, and St. Elsewhere. Could you imagine driving around LA in that cool red truck? I was definitely influenced by my mother, who was a labor and delivery nurse for over 40 years. And as Dave mentioned, I was fortunate that my parents highly valued education and sacrifice, and they sent us to some of the best schools in Washington, D.C. All the boys attended Gonzaga College High School. That turned out to be my first choice. They got sucked into it. And the girls all went to Stone Ridge Academy. One of the most impactful events of my life started in high school. My father was diagnosed with an obstructing colon cancer at the rectosigmoid junction. He was aged 38 at the time. I did not fully understand the magnitude of everything he endured until well into my surgical residency. We were fortunate in where we lived and that we had access to high quality health care. He qualified for a clinical trial at the National Institute of Health, and in a nod to Bruce's talk, this allowed his care to be fully covered. A good bit of the next several years were spent at the NIH in Building 10 in the center of the screen there. He went on to have a pelvic exoneration, a peritoneal mesh sling, high-dose chemo and radiation. He was one of the few people to survive this protocol. He spent the better part of a year in the hospital undergoing that protocol, and once discharged, he was on home TPN for at least a year. During his time at home, he developed a ruptured iliac pseudoaneurysm requiring emergency vascular surgery and Axbifem. Amazingly, he survived and recovered from all of that to return to work as a government contractor working on top secret submarine acoustic physics. He eventually, over the years, developed myelodysplastic syndrome. It required multiple to weekly transfusions, and he passed away while I was a third-year medical student. One of his original surgeons at the time was the famous Dr. Paul Sugarbaker. Paul, as many of you know, is famous for his work on peritoneal carcinomatosis, and I got to meet him in person a few years ago at a surgical meeting in DC. Surgery is very much a small world. During the time of my dad's illness, I moved to Atlanta to attend Emory University. I was fortunate to meet my future wife and several lifelong friends who've been instrumental for many things in our life, including our move to Virginia. While I was not the best student in college, I was fortunate enough to gain admittance to medical school. I moved back home and I started at Howard University. This by far is one of the most unique experiences of my life and clearly shaped the person I am today. As you know, Howard is one of several historically Black universities and colleges and one of the few with a medical school. We started with a class of 125, and I was one of 3 white students. It was the first time in my life that I was a minority in many senses of the word. We all bonded as classmates. I quickly learned that the amount of melanin one has in their skin does not divide us. Medical school training was rigorous and brutal. We started with a class of 125 and graduated with a class of 80. Could you imagine today losing 40% of a medical school class? It would be unheard of. We got to train at the real St. Elsewhere, DC General Hospital. It was the Wild West, and as a student, you did everything. Phlebotomy, patient transport, IV placement, minor surgical procedures, even ordering medications. The nurses would just take your order. Again, not appropriate in today's world, but nonetheless amazing as a trainee. Fortune shined on me again when I matched at University Hospitals of Cleveland. The training was superb and the relationships built have continued to today. I very much wanted a large university program with a variety of hospitals, and on the advice of our chair at the time, Dr. LaSalle Lafall, I applied there. I still remember that visit. I was sitting in the conference room with the other students. I was mesmerized by Dr. Shuck. Case was essentially my first choice. I thought I had no chance to get there. But I was ecstatic that day when we opened the envelope to see Cleveland. My wife and I got on the phone with my father-in-law. He was not so thrilled. Sarah and I thrived in Cleveland, me at Case and her at the Cleveland Clinic. We had a great run in Cleveland, but by 2008, it was coming to an end. A position opened at UVA, and our good friend Susan from Emory, who was on faculty at the medical center, encouraged us to apply. We were blessed to be offered the position. I was able to rise through the ranks to tenured professor and take on several roles in the department and medical center. You may have seen we've had a few issues at UVA over the past year. So I thought I would use part of this talk to talk about surgical leadership in particular. Are leaders born or developed? This is an age-old question, does not yet have a definitive answer. Up until the mid-20th century, many believed that great leaders were just simply born into the role. This was described by Thomas Carlyle as the great man theory. I think we can all recall someone in our life who's had that special magnetism that we were drawn to. For me, it was Dr. Lafall at Howard, Dr. Stellato and Malagoni in Cleveland, and Dr. Hanks and Dr. Shermer in Virginia. They are my surgical Mount Rushmore. I know Mount Rushmore has 4, but it's mine and I get to have 5. There is an awareness now that leadership skills can be acquired or improved. Surgeons in many ways are uniquely suited for this. We have opportunities to lead on a daily basis, maybe in small groups, the OR, clinical teams, committees, larger groups, divisions, departments, even organizations like this, hospitals or societies. What are some of the attributes of a successful surgical leader? The number one to me is technical expertise. I believe you need to know how to operate and be good at it. If you are not a strong surgeon, you don't come across as authentic. Strong communication skills, vision, the ability to move your group forward. You definitely need good decision-making, both inside the operating room and out, and you need to be able to problem solve. In this day and age, you definitely need high emotional intelligence. You need integrity, adaptability. You need to be able to manage conflict, and you have to have some resilience. Leadership styles also vary among surgeons. I would imagine that many of you have encountered most of these types of leaders in your career. Good leaders move fluidly from different types of leadership styles depending upon the situation. Coercive leadership. The leader is in full control and makes all of the decisions. Somewhat of a dictator. This may be helpful in high-stakes critical situations, a code, a severe trauma, but typically this is not successful over long periods of time. Authoritative leadership. The leader sets a clear vision, objectives, invites team input while retaining decision-making power. This approach can inspire teamwork and commitment and is often the role that we find ourselves in as surgeons. Pace-setting leadership. This leader sets a high performance standards and leads by example. It's follow me, guys. This surgeon may be your highest RVU provider or the person who has the most publications in your department. Democratic leadership. The leader seeks input from team members before making major decisions. Coaching. The leader develops team member skills and knowledge and acts as a mentor or guide. No matter what primary type leader you are often moving between all of these 5 domains. No matter how you lead, it is the relationships developed that impact everything. A leader needs strong relationships within both their internal groups and outside groups. A strong relationship fosters trust and culture. A strong relationship can develop and foster an environment for effective feedback. Balance. This is an element that, truthfully, I'm not very good at. I suspect many of us in this room are not good at it either. Brett Crozier talks about this and eloquently in his book, Surf When You Can. If you don't know who he is, he was the captain of the USS Theodore Roosevelt, an aircraft carrier deployed to the Pacific during the early days of COVID. There was an outbreak of COVID on his ship, and he recognized that they desperately needed to find a way to quarantine 5,000 soldiers or sailors, and they couldn't do that on the boat and needed to get to Guam. His communications to his superiors were leaked, and he was subsequently relieved of command. In the book, he recalls how he took up surfing early in his Navy career while stationed in Hawaii, and how those moments of being able to disconnect allowed him to be a better leader. Everyone will have a different way to unplug. I think mine is travel. Sarah thinks it's yard work and gardening. Recently, as you have heard at this meeting, my partner Bruce was unexpectedly unable to operate for many months. At this time, it left me as the sole bariatric surgeon and doubled my clinical load. Sarah immediately sensed the danger in this and scheduled little trips for us every 6 weeks or so. They were not necessarily big trips. We just needed to get a few hours away so I would not feel the need to return to work. I found after these trips, it was much easier to handle the day-to-day frustrations that come from working in a large academic medical center. It allowed me to recharge my inner battery and be able to take all the little needles that come from your case not starting on time, your room being delayed, etc. The golden rule: treat others as you would like to be treated. This was taught to me by my mother for sure and my grandmother. It's amazing to me how often this rule is forgotten or just not employed. The golden rule promotes a positive culture of mutual trust and respect, and it can be very useful in navigating complex ethical dilemmas, helping to guide your decision-making. However, it may require finding some balance in some of those complex situations. Communication. Communication is one of the most critical virtues or tools for a leader. Good communication is easy to say, but it's quite difficult to do in practice. I myself often struggle with communication, just ask my wife. We have many modes of communication today: email, text, Epic, Zoom, face-to-face meetings, small group meetings, large gatherings. I don't know about you guys. How many emails do you get a day? 100, 500, 1,000? How many of those do you ignore? A third? Half? How many meetings do you go to a week? Are they on Zoom, in person? If they're on Zoom, are you zoning out? Sometimes you're zoning out in person. How often does your entire department gather? When you do, how much is on the agenda? How we communicate has become even more complicated, and getting your message out is a lot harder. Often in a leadership position, you think you are communicating your message effectively, but in reality, you're not. And you really need the people around you to tell you. Other pitfalls are missing essential constituencies. Are the right people or groups in the room? In academic medical centers, we often overlook our students and residents. A few examples. When I was a resident at Case, we built a brand new hospital and never designed any adequate call rooms. It happened again as we built a brand new children's hospital just a few years later. No call rooms. I just heard at this meeting that there's an issue in a current hospital that they've built a new facility and no workrooms. It's amazing to me, over 30 years, this continues to happen. At UVA, we built a brand new hospital tower with new ORs and locker rooms, but we failed to account for the space for residents and students, so they now have lockers outside in the hall. Most recently, we're changing our pre-op order sets and did not engage the residents early in the process, i.e., the people who write those orders. A huge part of effective communication is active listening, hearing all the concerns of all the parties, and then we need to address those concerns. Leaders need to provide context to their decisions and to communicate that back to everyone. I think we've all had situations where we did not come out on the winning side of a discussion or a decision, and I think most of us can accept a negative decision if they've been felt heard and the context of the decision was clearly explained. Feedback. I was fortunate to be able to complete a leadership course last year at Northwestern's Kellogg School. An often repeated mantra there is feedback is a gift. Honest, critical feedback is often difficult to emotionally receive and at many times difficult to give. Our trainees and students have been asking for more effective feedback for some time. I think we see that in evidence of the proliferation of EPAs and resident and student requests for more feedback in their program surveys. Without honest, critical feedback, growth will be stunted or non-existent. Trust. Why do organizations need trust? Trust in an organization and its leaders allows a successful and thriving workplace to develop. Employees who trust their organizations are much more likely to be engaged, productive, and committed. Organizational trust is very similar to relationship trust. It takes a while to build and can quickly and be irretrievably lost if violated. Initially, leaders are instilled with trust based on their position. This trust is fleeting, though, and you need to build behaviors to maintain that trust. Those behaviors include authenticity and transparency, being genuine, open and honest about decisions and sharing information freely, especially during challenging times. Effective communication, being clear and concise in all your communications, fostering open dialogue without fear of retribution. Demonstrating integrity and competence, consistently aligning your words and actions, and upholding high ethical standards. What you do as a leader is way more important than what you say. We were always taught actions speak louder than words, and when it comes to leadership, that is very true. Empathy, understanding and acknowledgement of others' concerns, emotions, and needs, and providing support professionally and personally when it's needed. Consistency, being reliable, consistent in applying rules and expectations, avoiding those special situations or deals, those one-offs in the department that tend to come back and bite you. Accountability, taking responsibility, owning mistakes, and acknowledging failures, recognizing and learning from your errors. Empowering and developing team members, delegating tasks, trusting members to make decisions, providing opportunities for their growth go a long way to moving your organization forward. For me, data is king. We have more data than ever on everything we do. Just talk to the robotic guys. These facts go a long way to shaping conversations and directing goals. The problem with data is how it's measured and interpreted. One should try to engage the affected groups to test the data and interpretations. We recently opened 2 new outpatient ORs. We started a plan to move cases from our overcrowded main OR to those rooms. I was presented with data that showed one of our groups had a very high outpatient surgery rate in our main OR. It made perfect sense to me that this group should move. When the idea was presented to them, they weren't so happy. The group reviewed the data and found a significant methodological flaw in the data. So I took the data back to our OR team and the flaw, and we had it rerun. The final result still showed a significant outpatient rate, and we were then able to get buy-in from the group to proceed the shift. Culture. The culture of your organization is the shared values, beliefs, attitudes, practices, and behaviors that define how individuals within an organization collaborate and operate. It is very much an organization's personality. It is not merely a mission statement, a value statement, or a book of policies. Every organization's culture is different in some ways. It can be different from others even in the same field or the same geographic location. I bet if you move from one institution to another, you're going to see a new culture. It can be very challenging for leaders outside of this culture to assimilate to a new culture, and it may be especially difficult to attempt change of culture without significant buy-in from the group. A good example of this is traveling overseas to a foreign country and trying to change them. Good luck. As Peter Drucker said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Decisions. As a leader, you will be tasked with making numerous decisions, both big and small. We as surgeons are accustomed to making decisions under pressure and without complete information. It's helpful to remove emotion from the decision-making process when at all possible. A high level of emotion, especially negative about a situation, often signals an underlying problem. For instance, your colleague may be extremely upset at an OR delay. and this is out of proportion to what they usually are or new. It's likely that the delay is not the main problem, but a childcare issue or another event that they're not able to make is the real issue. Oftentimes, affected parties will try to draw you in by emotion, using data, good communication, stakeholder engagement, feedback, and reason will most times lead to the correct decision. Over time, solutions to many problems will become clear. However, there are situations where decisions need to be made, even if painful. The old adage applies here. If you find yourself on the wrong train, it is definitely cheaper and faster to get off at the next stop. So what happened at our institution? After months of internal meetings with senior university leadership and a failure to resolve the issues, in the fall of 24, over 120 faculty signed a letter of no confidence in the senior leadership of the health system. Donald Trump was elected president at that time, and in January, the Trump administration blew up the financing for academic medical center budgets with the NIH freeze. They also launched various investigations across many of the top universities in the country. We unfortunately may never know the outcome at UVA. After the letter of no confidence, the board hired an outside law firm to investigate the charges. The findings of the investigation were verbally presented to the board and the president. Our EVP for Health Affairs subsequently resigned. The provost resigned to take on the presidency of another college. Our president has just recently resigned under pressure from the Department of Justice. The dean of the medical school has resigned to take on the health system presidency of another institution, and our hospital CEO has resigned to take on another position at another hospital system. There was clearly a loss of trust among all the parties at UVA Health. To me, this was a failure of leadership. Surgical leadership in times of chaos is challenging, stimulating, crucial to continuing our important mission of taking care of our community. We currently are in the process of rebuilding our leadership teams and trust within our whole organization. Without a doubt, this is going to take a significant amount of time. However, we have the opportunity to come together as an organization and build a stronger community. Thank you. It's been a privilege and an honor to serve as the president of the Midwest Association this year. All right, on to the business meeting.